We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
And we're back here on Liberty Nation Radio. I'm your host, Mark Angelides. We're joined once again by Liberty Nation's legal affairs editor, Scott D. Cosenza. Now, earlier in the show, we've been talking about Donald Trump's legal travails. So we talked about the Washington, D.C. prosecution, we talked about the New York prosecution, and the New York civil trial. Later in the show, we are going to be talking Georgia and Miss Fani Willis, District Attorney Fani Willis. But right now, I want to dive into what's happening in Florida. Because Trump, and this one has been so under the radar, Scott, that most people seem to have forgotten that it's even happening. The Florida case.
I forgot about it myself, Mark. Of all the cases, you do lose track sometimes.
Let me posit a reason.
The search warrant document case, right?
Yeah, that's right. The classified documents allegedly found in Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago retreat. So this case, it just seems to have gone under the radar. Nobody's talking about it. And if I may, Scott, I'd like to posit a reason why, and I'd like you to tell me if my reasoning is sound. There's an election. Donald Trump is facing felony charges for hanging on to classified documents that he says he declassified simply by the virtue of being the president. And on the other side, Joe Biden is also running for office for his second term. And he was found to have multiple locations where he had classified documents, but without the defense of having been the president when he took those documents and stored them in his garage, not actually in his Corvette, which he did note in public that the Corvette is often locked. The convertible Corvette is often locked, but in the garage next to those things, among other places. So my theory, and I might be wrong here, is that the reason it's not getting any airplay is because it looks much worse for Joe Biden in optics than it does for Donald Trump. Now, the legal aspects, I don't know, Scott, which is why I turn to you. But I think the reason it's not getting any play at all in the media is because optically it looks worse for Joe Biden than Donald Trump.
So my only comment to push back on your supposition there is it indicates that the media is unwilling, the kind of big box mainstream media is unwilling to display a off the charts 100 out of 10 fantastic degree of hypocrisy in their coverage. And I think they are, Mark. Yeah. So I think that they would have no trouble covering on the front page, above the fold, first off the headline, Trump story, and then literally just not mentioning the Biden story at all. That's part of the reason why I think Liberty Nation even exists, is because we stick a finger in the eye of that hypocrisy, rather than just sort of don the shirt of another team. So that's why I think you might be wrong about that. I would guess it's probably just a weaker case, would be my supposition, but I don't know the answer.
So Robert Hur, no relation to Ben Hur, or maybe there is. He may come from a long line of chariot racers.
Or the potato chip heir.
I'm sorry?
Or the potato chip, the great potato chip company. Maybe you don't even know that.
I don't know the potato chip company. My knowledge only extends so far, Scott.
Yeah, you're no American, my friend.
So the Robert Hur Special Counsel investigation into the Joe Biden document dumps, let's call them, that is due to conclude quite soon. And chatter from the White House is that they think it's going to look bad optically for Joe Biden if pictures are released when the report is released. Now, let's be very clear. There's been no indication at all that Robert Hur is looking to bring charges against Joe Biden. So I guess there's two elements there. Clearly, a lot of people are going to draw a distinction between Robert Hur and that there might be, that there are, in fact, charges against Donald Trump for what could be essentially seen as the same thing by the public. And of course, there's the infamous picture that I presume it's the FBI, they laid out those documents on the floor and took a picture of it and released it on social media. And that looked terrible. It's like, look at Donald Trump with all these documents, as if Donald Trump, laid those documents out on the floor in that order to be photographed, which was clearly ridiculous at the time. But that didn't stop people then inferring that he has no respect for classification nor for the rule of law. Now, if photos come out of craggy, soggy cardboard boxes shoved next to a Corvette, that could look bad for Joe Biden, whether the level of criminality is reached in his case or not.
When you mentioned the photographs earlier about and saying that the chatter at the White House was that they weren't looking forward to the release of photos, I thought immediately of the photos from the Trump raid and thought to myself, Mark, well, they needn't worry about it because they're not going to be displayed with as much in his pornographic
artistry, let's call it,
layout as possible, like the Trump raid was. I'm sure that was. They probably called in like some art director. No, it's not. It's not vulgar enough. It doesn't look.
They called in a Hollywood producer to get the photographs right, like they did with January 6th. Right?
Yeah. So you may be right that that's still something they're bracing against, but I suspect that they will shine in comparison to the photographs that from the Trump raid because of who controls the taking of the photos and their release, which is to say, Joe Biden and his lieutenants.
Scott, let's wrap up this particular topic here with one final question, if you may. And that is, Trump's defense on this is that as president, he had the right to declassify any information and all information that he wanted. Now, if I may borrow a line from a movie I'm sure everybody loves, does the defense hold water?
Yeah, I appreciate that my cousin Vinny reference, to be sure. As I understand the counter to President Trump and his claim of declassification is that he didn't go through some process of declassification, that if he had declassified them, that the law says he can do so by doing X, Y, and Z. And Trump's claim is that he doesn't have to alert any office or secretary or any kind of commission that a document is declassified for him to have legally declassified it. The second that he hands it over to a person who doesn't have classified access, he has declassified it for that person, and he cannot be charged. He's the president, literally the last and ultimate decider of classification arguments for matters concerning the United States government. And so he doesn't have to do anything to declassify. He just does it by virtue of willing it. And that seems to be how it should work, given the way that the law works with respect to declassification. Otherwise, you'd have the supreme executive authority being subject to what?
A rubber stamp situation.
Right, exactly right. Some bureaucratic thing that doesn't make any sense. So I think that is the argument. And certainly the storage thing, you could argue, he didn't do in a way that most Americans would be happy about, given the prevalence of intelligence, foreign intelligence attempts to examine things. But
absolutely right. But in his defense, and it's not our place to defend either one of these presidents who are running for office. But in his defense, Donald Trump, as far as I know, does not own a Corvette.
It is our place, I think, to defend the process and to demand from all administrations that they not engage in political prosecutions. And we can do that for the Biden administration, and if there's a future Trump administration, will demand it of them too.
Absolutely right. Now, we're going to be right back with Scott DeCosenza for my favorite recent topic, Fani Willis in Georgia. Don't go anywhere, folks. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Don't get caught up in the media madness. Join our movement for free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com. Publishing news and analysis 24/7 with original articles by our team of authors who tell it like it is. Join us each week for online TV shows, The Uprising Podcast, and Liberty Nation Radio. We believe in free thinking and free speech. We are libertynation.com.